TNXT here. Welcome back. We're going to discuss the meat and potato, what everybody's been waiting on, which is the big rods, the 711s and the 8-footers. We've got 3 rods in particular we made, all 711s, and they're all fiberglass. It's the medium, a medium heavy, and the heavy. And then we have my favorite, which is the 8-footer that comes in at right at around 5 ounces. It will be the lightest 8-footer you've ever used, and it makes a perfect swim bait and 6XD rod, and I'll go into the details later. So let's talk about what I see and what I've noticed and discussed with other elite fishermen that are the mistakes that got us to develop these particular rods. The number one mistake I see is people throwing the wrong size bait with the wrong rod. So for instance, look at the size of this 10XD, okay? This bait weighs, or this is an 8XD, I'm sorry. This thing weighs at about, I don't know, 1.5 ounces probably. Look at the size of those hooks, right? You wouldn't throw that on a medium rod or a medium heavy rod just as well as you wouldn't throw this 10XD. Now again, look at the hooks. You can catch 60, 70 pound tuna with them hooks, right? You wouldn't throw this bait that weighs almost 3 ounces on a medium light or a medium heavy. You want something that can handle it. And the reason being is when you make a 100, 150 yard throw or foot throw and you start cranking, or you get that bait at depth, or you're long lining again and you've reached your maximum depth, you don't need that rod to be overloaded. And that's what I see. The guys are cranking. As I'm fishing the opens, I see them in the back of the boat, and they're throwing a 6XD and the rod is doubled over. And I'm like, do you have fish on? No, they're not fish on. Well, how are you going to set the hook? The power of the rod is already being used dragging the bait. So if it goes over that 30-35% of that rod, it's already overpowered. The bait is overpowering the rod, so you can't get the hook right. You imagine long lining. Those guys, when you long line like on Douglas Lake, they let out 300, 400 feet of line. 6XD, well, again, you got to have a rod that can handle a fish at 150 or 200 feet out there, and you wind that fish in, you get the hooks in that fish, so you wouldn't, again, use a small 7-footer or 7.2 or 7.6. You'd use an 8-foot rod, something that's got some length to it, that's got a little sweep to it. So let's get on to it. The 711 medium rod makes a great 6XD. It makes a great like a DD or a Little John DD. Those baits will dive with an 18 to 20, 22 foot on 150, 160 foot throw. On all the rods that are in this 711 foot class and all these baits that I throw, I am going to throw a wide spool reel. I'll throw anywhere from 8 to 15 pound line. On a 10XD, you're going to want to throw 15. 16 pound. On something like a 6XD, I go down as little as 8, depending on the depth. I remember a tournament back on Douglas, on a 100-foot throw, I was reaching 20 foot on a school of fish that I didn't have to long line because we can't long line in bass. And that school was mine and mine exclusively. The way I was doing it, the way I was set up to be able to make that throw on an 8-foot rod that I had that we were playing with a year and a half ago, perfect. I could touch bottom in 20 with a 6XD. Again, without the right rod, without the length, I couldn't get the distance, and I could not get that bait to dive that deep. So the medium heavy is perfect for like an 8XD. Again, a DD22. Some of the medium to large baits. Once you get into the 8-footer or the 711 heavy, now you can handle some of the 10XDs, some of the bigger baits out there. My favorite, of course, is the 8-foot. And this rod, just because it's 8 foot, does not mean you can throw a 10XD on it. It's actually, you can't do it. This rod is perfect for a 1/2 ounce bucktail jig, 1 ounce or 3/4 ounce swim bait. You're throwing like a 5 or 6 inch swim bait behind it, or even a 5 or 6 inch swim bait itself, a hard bait. And a crankbait, this rod I think makes absolutely the perfect rod to throw this Course Strike SOB that my buddy Dave Shoemaker makes. Again, this bait right here is probably one of the best kept secrets on the Tennessee River. And the reason is, if you find a school of fish on a shell bar, or on a ledge, a drop, and they won't react to a regular crank getting through them, or they won't hit a jig, or they won't hit a worm, you can throw this bait out there, and this is the SOB Series. This thing actually falls and it stands just like it is right here on the bottom, okay? The bait will sit there like a jig, and you can pop it. Well, if you're throwing a fiberglass rod, you're not going to be able to pop it. You're not going to get that snap out of that bait like you want to be able to pop it and bring it back down. You'll get fish to trigger on that bait when they won't eat anything else. And you catch a lot of fish behind guys doing it. Again, you're going to have a rod that pops, so here's the composite versus the glass rod. Same thing with a hair jig. You want to be able to pop it and do what you need to do to get the bait to move erratically. If it slows down with a glass rod, you won't get that erratic action. So the 7-foot medium, again, 6XDs, some of the, like the Little John, stuff like that. The 711 medium heavy, 8XDs, DD22s, those type of cranks. And then the 11 is for the big stuff, you know, the big 10XDs. You can actually throw a little heavier swim bait, probably up to 2-ounce swim bait on that, get a good distance on it, and go from there. And then our 8-foot, 5-ounce, guys, 8 foot is just at 5 ounces. Unbelievably light rod, perfect 6XD rod, a good 5 rod. It's also a good rod for throwing a chatterbait and ripping it off the bottom up to about a 1/2 ounce. If you're going to go anything bigger than that, like they do on Kentucky Lake, you make sure you get the 711 heavy for some of the ounce or 1.5 ounce, like the Picassos that those guys use down deep to get those fish to react. Not much more I can say about this 8-footer. Other than please don't overpower this rod. I got a feeling that the guys are going to order this thing and want to throw a big old bait on it, and that's not what it's meant to do. So again, perfect rod for several applications, just not anything as big as a 8 or a 10XD. Guys, if you haven't pre-ordered, they'll be here. Shipping date on them is the 17th. If you want to order, go to enigmafishing.com. Check us out on our Facebook at Enigma Fishing. We have an Enigma Fishing Anglers page on Facebook. You're open. We welcome everybody to go. Join. Everybody that owns a rod is welcome to get in there, ask all the questions you want. I'll be happy. I take care of all our social media, so I'm there. I can answer your questions for you. And after the 17th, you should be able to find them in your dealers. Use the store located at enigmafishing.com. Thanks for joining us today, guys.